Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Kryptos, Decimator, out July 5th on AFM Records. The album has 9 tracks, 31 minutes in length, and this is the band's 7th full-length studio album. They are an Indian heavy metal band. The first thing I noticed when I pressed play on this record and I went through first to last song is that this album has a track called Solaris that doesn't really fit the mold. It feels completely outside the box. The sound on this song, on this instrumental track, right in the middle of the record, does not match anything that came before, and it does not match anything that comes after. It stands on its own. It's a huge pause on this album. For an album that's 9 songs in 31 minutes, you don't need any pause at all. You want the album to be as fluid, as continuous as possible. Now, if you want to divide the record, you can do that with an interlude, with an extended outro, or even an extended intro into the song that follows. All of these 3 ideas would have created a sense of divide, but would not slow down the record, would have not paused the album. The sense of continuity of the record would have stayed intact, and the fluidity of the album definitely would have increased with that sort of design, with that sort of approach. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this is a guitar-centric record through and through. But as a guitar-centric album, they were able to create different textures, different experiences, and then an atmosphere that kind of blankets the entire album. As far as the textures and experiences are concerned, I see hard rock, I see classic 80s, 90s heavy metal, but I also see goth rock on this album. The goth rock side is coming from the more melodic approach of the guitars that brings that darkness with it. And I thought that was a really nice touch in order to give extra life, in order to give a little bit more substance to the way these songs sound. It also allows them to be a lot more catchy and a lot more hooky because the melodies with that darkness behind them not only makes you want to headbang, it almost makes you want to dance. This album has that goth rock appeal to it on every single track, regardless of how much of heavy metal or hard rock is influencing where the song is going and how we are getting there. But the guitar work throughout the record with the production behind it, it's really what allows them to use these 3 different influences and definitely have that blanket of darkness that changes from track to track, but it's always there and it becomes the calling card of the entire record. As far as the guitars are concerned, I also really enjoyed the solos. I thought the solos on this album matched the experience of the songs. They're not necessarily all of them over the top. Some of them pull in a little bit more of a classic heavy metal vibe. Some of them come in with a little bit more of a hard rock approach. And some have that more catchy, hooky, dark club vibe that goth rock does really well. The nuances on the solos are determined by the nuances that exist within the songs themselves. But the guitar work all around is definitely one of the highlights of this record. Another highlight of this record is how much the bass comes through in a non-intrusive way. What I mean by that is that while the bass is noticeable, it doesn't really impact the experience of the record as far as the guitar and drum sound is concerned. It comes into a point where you could feel it, you could hear it, you see the grooviness and the darkness that it adds to these songs, but in a way that feels very subtle, in a way that doesn't rock the boat. And for an album that is very streamlined, for an album that is very guitar-centric, that's the exact approach that you want out of your bass. You want little nuances, you want little ripples here and there that create unique fingerprints within the songs, but you don't necessarily want to be jolted by it track in and track out. It would take away from the atmosphere of this record, it would take away from that blanket of darkness that exists from first to last. The drums are also not overpowering, but once again, on a record like this that pushes the guitars forward, the drums are there more to compensate the back end of the sound and create some volume and create some substance behind it, making sure that the overall sound has something in it and there's no empty pockets. And that's exactly what you're going to get out of these drums. Everything is there in order to push the guitars and to give the guitars a little bit more room to breathe and allow them at times to work in parallel in terms of being a little bit heavy, being a little bit more gritty, and also still being super dark and melodic, and have these 2 worlds coexist with one another and giving the songs a little bit of a larger footprint by doing so. Now vocally, this is where you're going to find some consistency. From the first to the last song, outside of some backing vocals here and there and some choruses, this album is super consistent vocally from start to finish. That raspiness is a great delivery, and it's a delivery that works well when you look at classic heavy metal. It's a delivery that works well when you look at hard rock, and it's a delivery that works extremely well when you look at goth rock. So the vocals on this record really match the overall album idea and the execution of that same idea. And this ends up being one of their strongest albums to date. Outside of Solaris, that song is the only thing that just makes you wonder why. Why is it there? Why can't we have a more fluid and continuous record? Outside of that detail, this is a magnificent album through and through. I love the sound, I love the power of the guitars, I love the duality of the guitars, but perhaps more important, what I really enjoyed about this album is that sense of darkness that permeates out of each and every single song, both musically and vocally. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Fall to the Spectre's Gaze. This is a super driven, dark melodic, heavy metal song, and I love it. It has a great guitar riff, great guitar sound. It's very catchy, super hooky chorus. And it's hooking not just musically but also vocally, which gives this great vibe. The chorus has such a great vibe, like it has this great feel to it. It's a chorus that fills in the track. It brings life to the song, and then you have a solo that really enhances what the vibe, what that mood of this song is all about. So a track that has all the right elements in the right place in order to create a dark, driven, heavy track that still finds a way to be melodic and hooky, especially once you get into that chorus. Next you have In the Shadows of the Blade. The bass on this track is really cool. The bass on this track is dark, or adds a sense of darkness to the song, but it also adds some grooviness to the way the song comes about. The guitars sound really cool as well. They manage to have this core sound that it's melodic but it's driven at the exact same time, and this gives a lot of movement to the song. It gives a lot of depth to the song, which is really important, and the guitars and bass help one another. This is a track where the guitars and bass are really working well and working in unison, almost to create not just a dark experience but also a melodic / groovier experience from start to finish. The vocals add to what the guitars and bass are doing. It has an amazing solo, super explosive in the way that it comes about. The solo on this track really gives you hints of the experience in the darkness that was already in the song, that was already in those guitars, that was already in that bass. And then you have the bass also continuing as the solo is happening, which was really cool. I honestly felt like the work of bass and guitar throughout this song, and it's almost like the two are inseparable. You see the work of them in the verses, feeding off of one another, working in parallel with one another, and then you see that in the chorus, not as much as in the verses, but it's there. And then when it comes to the solo, where you're expecting the guitars to kind of have the room for themselves and completely separate themselves from what is happening bass-wise, it's not the case. The guitar is doing the solo, the guitar sound is there, and the bass is almost doing a solo behind the guitars. And what that does is it enhances the size of the sound. It gives a little bit more depth to the sound even during the solo. So that to me was one of the key factors that allowed this song to really stand out, not just because of the vibe that it has, but because the great sound of bass and guitar and the collaboration between the two. They never really go too far off without holding hands once again. Last but not least, the last track on the record, We Are the Night. I love this song because I think it's the track that really allows you to feel the goth rock side of this record. The goth rock side of the record comes through in this track perfectly. And I think it's one of those songs that, the light bulb moment comes on, because you're listening to this record and you're like, man, this is a dark sounding record. But you cannot really put your finger on it, on how does it make you feel, like what vibe is it trying to create, what vibe is trying to offer the listener. And then you get to this song at the end of the record and you're like, man, this has a little bit of a goth rock vibe to it, because this song doesn't hide it. This song really puts it all out there. It showcases it better in the riff, in the melody, how contagious it is. The old school rock and roll feel comes through. The guitars sound really good. Vocally, it's a calmer track. It still has that raspiness to it, but it's a calmer track, and that calm vocally mixed in with that more melodic approach really allows that goth rock experience to come through in the chorus and in the verses. Great way of closing the record, because it's that light bulb moment that you really need at the end of the album to force you to go back again to the beginning, listen to this record with a different set of ears. That is how this album comes across, and that is what you're going to get from We Are the Night. This is it, Kryptos with Decimator, out July 5th on AFM Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.